Hey Brody, so today we are just starting our first chapter in our first lesson in chapter 8 on fractions. Chapter 8 is about fractions. Now, chapter 8 is one of those very important chapters because as we move forward with chapters 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, fractions are going to be all throughout there. So we have to get a good grasp on them. But don't worry, we'll start out easy. I'll slip in the hard stuff, and I really think before long, you're going to be zooming through these fractions. So today we started out. I did give you your vocabulary words, your cards. Now I give them to you, and let me see. This is mine, so it looks different from yours. So don't freak out. These vocabulary words, that's a Quizlet, so you can look through those. You can study them. I think that there's games that you can play on there. If you have any questions, let me know. But whenever you get back to school, I will have your vocabulary cards that I will give to you. But today we started out talking about factors and multiples, and this isn't anything new. We learned that factors are the two numbers that we multiply together way back in our multiplication chapter, like 4 or 5 chapters ago. So factors are the two numbers that we multiply together. We know that the product is the answer, but we want to focus not on the product, but factors, the two numbers that I multiply together, and multiples. Remember, multiples are any answer of any whole number and another number. So it's like if we were skip counting. So remember, my factors are my two numbers that I multiply together, and my multiples are like if I was skip counting. They're all of my answers. So right here it says factors are numbers that are multiplied together to form a product. The two factors that are multiplied together are the factor pairs of the product. So that makes sense. These two numbers that I multiply together, my two factors, are my factor pair of this product right here, which is 8. So I do have this little visual right here to kind of help you remember the difference between multiples and factors. And I am going to print this off for you guys too. I got to remember to do that. All right, so magic multiples magically grow bigger. Remember that a multiple is a number that is the product of a given number and any whole number, kind of like skip counting. So with our multiples, if I ask you to find the first 4 multiples of 12, we would think of 12 times 1, 12 times 2, 12 times 3, 12 times 4. So here are my first 4 multiples, 12, 24, 36, and 48. So my magic multiples magically got bigger. So my magic multiples, if I'm finding the first 4 multiples of 12, they have got to be at least 12 or larger. All right? Multiples magically grow bigger. They are the same and greater than the number that we are looking at. So thinking about our factors, we have the factor ninja that chops up the numbers. So a factor is a number that divides a whole number evenly. It's also a number that is multiplied by another number. Now, up until this point in time, we have focused on this right here. Oops, nope, not that. We have focused on this, a number that's multiplied by another number. But what I want us to focus on now is the fact that when I have the number 12, like over here, I know that 12 times 1 are my factors that will give me 12, right? 12 times 2 will give me 12. So this is how we're looking at our factors now. Is now I'm kind of erasing these factors and saying, okay, Brody, what are 2 factors that I can multiply to give me 12? And that's what you're having to come up with. So now you're having to come up with all the factors of a number. So we're going to think of all of our factors of 12, all of the numbers I can multiply together to get me 12. Now the factor ninja chops them up. So since I'm chopping it up, I should not have a number that is larger than 12. It should be either 12 or less. So we always want to start with 1. So I'm going to say my first factor pair of 12 is 1 and 12. After I check 1, I'm going to go to 2. My second factor pair of 12 is 2 and 6. After 1 and 2, I'm going to check 3. My next factor pair of 12 is 3 and 4. And if I were to go up and check the number 4, I realize that it's already right here. So that means that I'm done checking my factors. Now, we're going to go into this a little bit deeper on the lesson, but I really like this visual because it helps you remember that your magic multiples get bigger and that your factor ninja chops up. So magic multiples are that number and bigger, and then factor ninja is that number and smaller because it chops them up.
All right, so let's take a look at our first example, Brody. It says a shelf is arranging 48 strawberries in an array on a tray. Find all of the factor pairs of 48 to see what kind of arrays can be made. Draw and label one of the arrays. Now, we're not going to do this last part, but let's take a look at what it's asking us. So it's asking us to see what kind of arrays that this shelf can make. Now, remember, an array is made up of columns and rows. So he is deciding how many strawberries he can put in each column and each row so that they'll still be even. He can determine which how many columns and rows he can make by thinking about the factor pairs of 48. What two numbers multiplied together will give me 48? In order to know that we have discovered all of our factor pairs, there is a specific order that we can go in. Now, I like for you all to check, start with 1. We know that 1 is going to be a factor because 1 will go into every number. 1 times 48 gives me 48, so that is my very first factor pair. Now, after I check 1 or after I use 1, I'm going to think about 2. Will 2 evenly divide into 48? Will 2 times anything give me 48? And I know that answer is yes because 48 is an even number by looking at that 8 right there. So I know 2 is going to work. Well, 2 times what? Now, if you didn't know this right off the bat, you could come over here and divide it out because you are going to have to do that at times. But I feel pretty confident that, Brody, you can look at 48 and say 2 times 2 gives me 4, 2 times 4 gives me 8. So my next factor pair would be 2 and 24. All right, so 1 times 48 is my first factor pair. 2 times 24 is my second factor pair. So let's look at the next number after 2, which is 3. Let's see if 3 works. Now, you could divide it out with the bracket, but I have a trick so you'll know whether or not 3 works. This little trick works for 3, and it works to see if a number is divisible by 9. So, with seeing if I need to include 3, I'm going to take my multiple right here, my product, 48. I'm going to add it together. So 48, 4 plus 8 is 12. Now, take that answer. Can 12 be divided evenly by 3? Yes, it can, 3 times 4. So that means 48 is going to be a multiple of 3. So to find that missing factor, I need to divide because the highest I know is 3 times 12. All right, 3 times 1, let's see, 3, I get 1, 1 is less than 3. Bring my 8 down, I get 18. 3 times 6 gives me 18, so looky there. My trick told me I was right, and whenever I divided, I did not get a remainder, so that means that 16 times 3 are factor pairs of 48. So I checked 1 times 48. I checked 2, 48 was even, so it did work. I checked 3. Now let's look at 4. So after 3, I'm going to move to 4. We know that 4 will work because 4 times 12. will give me 48. That's one of our basic facts. Now, after 4, we need to check 5. Now, a lot of the class today said 6. They jumped automatically to that 6 because it was on the paper. We have to check 5 because we have to make sure that 5 is not a factor of 48 or not a part of a factor pair. We know that 5 is not a factor of 48 because 48 does not end in a 0 or a 5. So if 48 does not end in a 0 or a 5, 5 won't work. So that's why they moved on to number 6 because they checked 5, it didn't work. Now let's check 6. Will 6 times anything give me 48? Yes, 6 times 8 is 48. That's another basic fact. Now, I'm out of lines, so you kind of already know that you found all your factor pairs, but I do need to tell you how you know when you're ready to stop. I would think about the next number 7, and 7 is not a factor of 48. Closest I can get is 7 times 7, and that's 49, or 7 times 6, and that's 42. So then I would go to the next number after 7, which would be 8. And we notice that my 8 is already included in my factor pairs. So once I get to a number that's already included, I'm done. I have found all of my factor pairs. So let's take a look at the next example. So what that means is, think about multiple. That means skip counting. I'm losing my mind, Brody. I was about to write, I was going to abbreviate skip counting because I do not want to write all that out, which I guess I could text it. But anyways, so skip counting. If I skip count by 4s, will I land on 64? Now, the quickest way is to divide it. If I divide it and there are no remainders, then my answer is going to be a yes. But if I divide it and there are remainders, then my answer is going to be, no remainders equals to yes. If I divide it and there are remainders, that means that no, it's not going to work out because it doesn't evenly divide. So let's take a look at this division. 4 going to 6 one whole time. 6 minus 4 is 2. 2 is less than 4. I bring down my 4. They don't keep it lined up, but I'm going to try to. 4 times what gets me close to 24? 6. And so I didn't get a remainder. So my other factor, 4 times 16, does give me 64 because I don't have a remainder. Now, another way you can double check is just by skip counting. I can skip count through my multiples of 4, and if I land on 64, that means that it is a multiple of 4 because I can skip count and get to that multiple. Remember, multiples are skip counting. So they already give me 4 times 1, 4 times 2, 4 times 3. So let's do 4 times 4, 4 times 5, 4 times 6, 4 times 7, 4 times 8, 4 times 9, 4 times 10, 4 times 11, 4 times 12. Now, once I get to 4 times 12, I don't know these off the top of my head, so I need to skip count up 4, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. 52 plus 4 is 56. Then 60. Then 64. So since I landed exactly on 64, that means that 64 is a multiple of 4. So yes. All right, let's take a look at this guided practice. Again, this is the part where if you wanted to pause it and try your luck, you could. So let's look at finding the factor pairs of each number. Remember, we always want to start with 1 and go up whenever we're finding these factor pairs. So my first factor pair for 46 is 1 and 46. Then after 1, I'm going to check 2. And I know that 2 will work because 46 is even. This is also another problem that you can eyeball it, and you can say, okay, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6. Now, again, this kind of gives us a little tip. We're out of lines, so we're out of factor pairs. All right, now let's do the same for 76. Let's find its factor pairs. So I have 1 and 76. I'm going to move to 2. I know 2 will work because 76 is even. Now this one's a little tougher, which you could probably still do this one in your head. You know that 2 times 3 is 6, and that leaves me with 1 left over. So I get 16, and 2 times 8 gets me to 16. So 2 times 38 is a factor pair of 76. Sorry. Now, let's check 3. So let's use our trick for 3. My trick to see if I need to worry about dividing that 3 is 7 plus 6. 76, 7 plus 6. 7 plus 6 is 13. 13 does not evenly divide by 3. So 3 can't go here. It doesn't work. So now let's try the next number, 4. I do have a trick for 4, but it doesn't work for these small numbers, so I can't really help you with that now. The only way to see if 4 will work is by dividing 76 by 4. If I divide it and I don't get a remainder, then great, I found my 2 factors. If I do get a remainder, then I have to move on and start checking my next numbers. So let's see, 4 times 1 gives me 4. I get 3. All right, so now I'm seeing that I get 36, and I know that 4 times 9 is 36. I don't get a remainder, so guess what? I just found my last factor pair, 4 and 19. Now, before we move on, I just want to tell you, if you happen to get these two numbers mixed up, like instead of 1 and 46, you put 46 and 1, it is not going to be wrong. It'll still be correct. But I like to keep these numbers lined up so I can easily see where I stopped and where I need to start back. So that just helps you there. Now, let's look at a couple of, or a few more problems that you may see. Let's make this a little bit bigger. These are an example of some problems they may ask you. Is 66 a multiple of 6? Now, right here, yes, because 6 times 11 is 66, so that's a yes. There is a trick for 6's, though. If it's even, so if this number follows my rule for my 2, if it's even, and if it follows my 3 rule, meaning 6 plus 6 is 12, 12 will divide by 3. All right, it's supposed to be a division symbol. So it worked for 2, it worked for 3, so that means yes, 66 is a multiple of 6 if it happened to have been larger. And I'm going to send you a copy of those rules as well, Brody, so you can, or actually they're little rhymes to help you remember the tricks. On the next one, is 86 a multiple of 4? Again, the only way that I can know with 2-digit numbers in 4 is by looking at this division bracket. 4 times 2 is 8. All right, now that I get 0 and I'm dropping down the 6, I see I'm going to wind up getting a remainder. So guess what? That is not a multiple of 4. And then lastly, is 78 a multiple of 3? Well, let's do our trick. What is 7 plus 8? It is 15. Is 78 a multiple of 3? Well, will 15 divide evenly by 3? Yes. All right. So this is the end of our of my demo for you with your lesson and with your examples and guided practice. Before we move on, before I give you your classwork, I just want to show you this is what your classwork, this is what the first page is going to look like. Then this is what the second page is going to look like. And then this is going to be your homework. For homework, you're only going to do numbers 1 through 10. All right, and before I log off, let me just show you these divisibility rules. like I said, I will post this to Google Classroom for you to look at. All right, these are our tricks. I won't bore you by reading these to you, but just an example, like number 2, we know a number is divisible by 2 if it's even. So it tells us I'm number 2 and I'll be your friend as long as an even number is on the end. So just some fun ways to help remember those tricks. Notice there's not a 7 or an 8 on here because there's not a trick for 7 or 8. Well, there are tricks, but there is not a trick that is easier than just dividing it out right now in 4th grade. So if you get 4 and 8, you're just going to have to divide those out. But division's not hard. Y'all have been rocking it. So I will upload this to Google Classroom for you.